For those who don't know who I am Michael Lawrence. I am the chairperson for the Carter, Dawkins, and Riddle Family Reunion. I have served as a chairperson since 2008, and it has been an extreme honor and privilege to serve as a chairperson for our family reunion. After dedicating over a decade to researching our family history through census records, newspapers, oral histories, and family connections, my ultimate goal has been to preserve and share our legacy with each of you and reunite our family. We are blessed to have a rich family history. Our history is one of sorrow, triumph, and togetherness. Researching our family history has allowed me to travel to so many wonderful places and to meet so many loving family members. Whether I'm visiting Louisville, Mississippi, Mound Bayou, Mississippi, Sunflower, Mississippi, Chester County, South Carolina, California, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, Lorraine, Ohio, Detroit, Saginaw, Michigan, or Tennessee, one thing has always stood out is that the love for family feels natural and it's not forced. We are generations linked in love. And I'm struck by the magnitude of our family's reunion's growth. And it's truly amazing to see all of us come together. At the core of every individual is a unique definition of family, shaped by experiences and bonds, and we hope that you build a bond that's so strong this weekend that you'll continue to come back and enjoy the reunions with us. To me, family represents a sense of belonging, unconditional love, unwavering support, and a driving force that inspires us to grow. So here we are at our 8th biannual family reunion. Let's continue to make memories. And if you're anything like me, I know you want to know who we are and where we come from and get a little bit more information on our family. So let's travel back in time and reflect on our family history. Our family roots began in Africa, also known as the Mother Continent. Thanks to DNA testing, we know our ancestors came from West Africa. Our family was taken and sold into slavery. Although our family lived in Winston County, Louisville, Mississippi, the Carter roots has been successfully traced back to Chester, South Carolina. The challenges of tracing our roots before slavery required researching the enslaver's family history. Documented in the will of Senator Churchill Carter. His slaves were to be distributed amongst his children upon his death. Churchill had a son named Joseph Carter who married Martha Wilkes. Joseph and Martha had two sons, Levi and Richard Wilkes Carter, known as R.W., who left Chester, South Carolina for Mississippi in the fall of 1857. They left with their family, slaves, and personal belongings. Our family was with their enslavers during this move and had to leave their family in Chester, South Carolina behind. By the spring of 1858, the Carters had a plantation in Louisville, Winston County, Mississippi that was developed and had 90 acres of land ready for cultivation. The Carter plantation is known for being prosperous, and it is documented that other plantation owners got their start in life from borrowing from the Carter plantation. Our family descends from the Carter plantation and was subjected to harsh manual labor. The first Carter family member I started researching is Alan Carter, who was born in Chester County, South Carolina, around 1830. He was brought with Levi and R.W. Carter to Louisville, Winston County, Mississippi when they made that move. He was a laborer on the Carter plantation located in Louisville, Winston County, Mississippi. Alan married Gracie. They had 11 children that I have been able to find: Sam, Dan, Caroline, Jonas, Mary, Robert, Letha, Alex, Will Allen, Johnny, and Joseph. At our 2008 family reunion in Louisville, Mississippi, we invited the descendants of Levi and R.W. Carter, and we were able to live out Dr. Martin Luther King's dream, the sons of former slave owners and the son of former slaves being able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Understanding and breaking down the Carter lines of Winston County, Mississippi has proven to be very complex. And with Carters marrying Carters after slavery and the common use of the same names makes things even more difficult when researching. So came about DNA. I relied on DNA to kind of help put some of the pieces back together for us. After comparing my DNA and other family members who have taken DNA testing, I was able to locate some family members who are still living in Chester, South Carolina today. Many of these family members who are living there were happy to connect, and they shared the same story of hearing about family members leaving South Carolina and going to Mississippi. The one harsh reality of slavery is that we don't necessarily know how we are connected. We've made some assumptions, but we don't clearly know how we are related. But what's significant about this is that we broke the chains of the 1870 wall, and we also broke the chains of slavery by connecting with our family members who were left in South Carolina. So I'd say that we are our ancestors' wildest dream, because they probably thought that they would never ever make that connection again. So a group of us in the fall of 2021 decided to visit Chester, South Carolina to meet those family members. And we've continued to work on this DNA project to figure out more about the Carter lines, because we see that DNA is linking several of the Cranks, Wilkes, Worthies, McCrees, and Gore family and Carters that are still living in South Carolina to the family that is living in Louisville, Winston County, Mississippi, which is significant in our research. While on that visit in Chester, South Carolina, I met with Mr. Ralph Crank, who is 83. He agreed to do a DNA test and allow me to be the manager. And boy, did we get a nice surprise. He matches several of us. So it is obvious that the DNA is there and that we are making strides to figure out our connection to Chester, South Carolina by examining wheels and the DNA and trying to put back together the pieces of our family tree. So one key component of this is that Ralph Crank is a descendant of a Crank. And when we started examining the wheels of the Wilkes, which are the grandparents to R.W. and Levi, we saw in that wheel that they left a slave with the last name of Crank to one of their descendants. So this is putting back together the pieces that we had lost. We don't know exactly who this Crank is to our family, but we can see that the DNA is strong and that we are matching them, and it's truly amazing to see how this is all wrapping up for us. After slavery, Alan Carter built his legacy in the Mount Calvary community. He was one of the founders of the community, and in fact, he gave the land for the Mount Calvary Church and for the Mount Calvary School to be built. What's noteworthy is that after emancipation, our ancestors built a foundation of togetherness, faith, and stability in the Mount Calvary community. The community gave our ancestors hope during difficult circumstances. And we see even after slavery that many of those that were on the Carter plantations settled near Alan Carter. So there was some kind of connection that he built, or some kind of bond. Many of them have been reported to be his family members. Exactly how, we do not know, because many in the community called each other cousins. And one group of family that we have been closely examining is the family of Andrew Carter. Andrew Carter came to Mississippi and settled right near Alan Carter after slavery. So that tells us there was some kind of reunion that happened after slavery, where he left, him and his mother, Lucy Carter, they left South Carolina and they came to Mississippi. We've made some assumptions that Lucy could be Alan's daughter that he had in Chester, but we haven't quite been able to determine if that's true. But what's even more significant is that they settled right near Alan Carter, right there in the Mount Calvary community. And many of them called each other cousins for years, but nobody ever really knew exactly how. But DNA is coming into play, and it's showing that there is some DNA shared between the families, and we are still trying to work through this and figure exactly how. And there's several Carters that are in the community who are connected. So what we do, and what our purpose with our reunions are, we make sure that anybody that's connected to the Carter family, you are welcome to attend. We invite all the Carters that descend off that Carter plantation, because we understand that it's very difficult trying to break down these Carter lines and understanding exactly how we're all related. Another family that left Chester, South Carolina for Mississippi is the Triplett family. The Triplett family has a long history in Winston County, Mississippi as well. The Triplett family had very large enslaved plantations there in Winston County, and our ancestor, Frank Dawkins, descends from the Triplett plantation. Frank Dawkins was born around 1806. Some records show 1816. And as a young man, he was taken to the slave market in Richmond, Virginia, and sold to a Barney Triplett. Barney transported him to Chester, South Carolina, and then at some point he left Chester, South Carolina, and moved to Winston, Mississippi. While in South Carolina, Frank had a son named Benson Dawkins. Our first record of seeing Frank Dawkins on the census record is in 1870. In 1870, he's married to Mary, and they have the total of 10 children. But what's even more significant about that census record, his last name is listed as Triplett. For some unknown reason, by the 1880 census, he changed his last name to Dawkins. There are many stories about Frank Dawkins' life as being enslaved that were passed down by family members. We've all heard the stories of him being a runaway slave. When he would get unhappy, he would leave the plantation and would hide in the woods for days. They would have to bring the patrollers with their dogs out to find Frank Dawkins and return him to the plantation. Frank Dawkins died in around 1914. Family members report that he was 118 years old. On the 1910 census, he is listed as being 104. Frank Dawkins' life was so extraordinary that he was featured in the book Slave Narratives. There was a write-up on his death and it mentions him being a runaway slave. From census records, we've been able to find his 10 children. His first child was Benson Dawkins. He was actually born in South Carolina, so he also made the move from South Carolina with the slave owners to Mississippi. Benson Dawkins married Elsie Colton, and they had 8 children: Willie, Alina, Larkin, Daisy, Emma, Reby. Benson and his family left Winston County, Mississippi and moved to Arkansas and later moved to Kansas City area. Fortunately, we were able to find a death certificate for him. He passed in 1944 in Kansas City. His second child was Emma. She married Sam Carter. His third child was Henry Dawkins. He was married a few times, but he had the following children that we've been able to find: Amy, Sarah, Jody, Louie, Bolden, Maddie, Mary J, Lemmy, Perry Lee, and Jerry. His fourth child was Scott Dawkins. His fifth child was Emmeline. She married Charlie Graham, the son of Smart and Dessler Graham. And they had the following children: Riley, Lenny Walter, Mary, and Nancy. Frank Dawkins' sixth child was Frank Dawkins Jr. He married Roxana. There's a tomb at Little Calvary Cemetery for Roxana Dawkins, the wife of Frank Dawkins. And Frank Dawkins Jr. lived, and we still found him in the 1940 census, but we haven't been able to find any of the information on him other than in the 1940 he was living in Tallahatchie County. His seventh child was named Mary. She married Charlie Graham, the same husband as her sister, but she married him after the sister's death, and they had the following children: Princess, David, William, Emmeline, Thomas Potts, and Charlie Graham. Frank Dawkins' eighth child was William Dawkins. He married Emma Carter, and they had the following children: Lou Bertha, Percy B, PB, William, who's known as Buddy, Thelma Davis, which his name is, and then there's DV, and he also raised his grandson named Johnny Micheal. Frank Dawkins' ninth child was known as Elizabeth. She married Allen Hopkins in 1896, and they moved around Memphis, Tennessee, and she passed January 10, 1944. They had the following children: Ethel Hopkins, Singleton Hopkins, Lottie Hopkins, and Ollie Hopkins. Frank Dawkins' next child was Boss Dawkins, and then there's another child that's listed as Davis Dawkins. So you heard that right. Frank Dawkins had 3 children to marry into the Carter family, hence why we have the Carter-Dawkins family reunion. The first Carter and Dawkins union we see is Sam Carter married Emma Dawkins. Sam Carter is the son of Alan Carter, and Emma Dawkins is the daughter of Frank Dawkins. They married shortly after slavery. Their occupations on the census records are sharecroppers. They had a total of 14 children. We see that Sam passed before the 1910 census, and Emma is listed as a widow. She's living with her eldest son, Scott, who's known as Job Carter. And we know from family history that she died living with her son, Job Carter, and she passed in February the 22nd, 1940 in Louisville, Winston County, Mississippi. Her first child that she had with Sam Carter is Mary Carter, who the family remembers as Mamie Nerva. She married Alex Crockett, and they had the following children: Corrine, Ovi, Thelma, Alice, Benny, Booker T, Dewitt, and Ella. Also, they raised a granddaughter, Octavia Crockett Beatty. Alex and Mary Crockett left Winston County, Mississippi, and settled in the Delta area, specifically in the Mound Bayou area. Alex died in 1959, and Mary died in 1961 in Chicago, Illinois. Sam and Emma's second child was named Delia She married Reverend Wheeler Carter. They had the following children: Leon, Roosevelt, Alberta, Annie, Emma, Versi, Maggie, and Orme. Sam and Emma's third child was Scott, known as Job Carter. He married Elvira Carter, and they had one daughter, Lenora, and she married William Roach. William and Lenora had 3 kids, Oliver, Elvira, and Milton. Sam and Emma's fourth child was Emma, better known as Isadora. She married John Esters and later married Charles Clark after John's death. She had the following children: Grady, Jody, Cordy, John, Emma, Elizabeth, Thomas, Daisy, Adele, Creola, Freddie, and Mamie. Thanks to DNA testing, Isadora's family was located in 2019 when her granddaughter, Micheal Williams, did a DNA test and connected her to the family. Emma Isadora died in 1957. And she died in the Chicagoland area. Many of her descendants are still living in the Boxtown neighborhood of Memphis, Chicago, and Detroit. Sam and Emma's fifth child was Benson, known as Jack Carter. He married Kitty Riddle, and they had the following children: Lovey, Glover, Charlie, Ollie, Sam, Willis, Houston, Edith, and Bernice. Sam and Emma's sixth child, Ella, she married Fate Wilson, and they had the following children: Willie, Johnny Lee, Alma, Elma, Cleo, and Cleveland. Sam and Emma's seventh child, Henry Carter, is another one of her children and moved to the Delta. He married Josie McAfee, and they had 3 children together: Edgar, Bertha, and Penny. Sam and Emma's 8th child, Alan, no further information has been collected on him. Sam and Emma's 9th child was Sam Carter. He was married twice to Macy and Janie Neal. However, he had no children. He moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and eventually died in Memphis, Tennessee around 1980. Sam and Emma's 10th child was Emmett. He had 2 children, Theo and William. No further information has been collected on him other than he moved to Villa Ridge, Illinois. Sam and Emma's 11th child was Daisy Carter. She married John Rogers, and they had 3 boys, Edgar, James, and Benny Joe. She later in life moved to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where she passed at. Sam and Emma's 12th child was Cloyd. He was married to Lula Triplett, and they had the following children: Nag Lee, John D., a set of twins, Fanny and Emma, Janice, O.T., Mary, and L.D. Sam and Emma's 13th child was Katie. She married Feldman Haynes, and they had 3 children: Annie Lee, Archie B., and Emma May. Sam and Emma's 14th child was T. Russell. No further information has been collected on her other than she passed at a very young age. The second Carter-Dawkins union is that of Scott Dawkins, who married Mary Carter, and they had the following children: Martha J., Harriet, Robin, Ebony, Icy, Fletcher. Their son, Robert Lee, married Jody Riddle, and they had the following children: Bernice, Talmadge, Robert, Prentice, Mary, Vernell, Seabell, Janie, Roberta, and Maureen. Scott Dawkins lived to be 99 years old. He passed in a house fire in 1954. 2 of Frank Dawkins' grandsons, Benson, better known as Jack Carter, and John Robert Lee Dawkins, married into the Riddle family. So 2 first cousins married 2 sisters. They married Kitty Riddle and Jody Riddle, making their descendants double kin. The Riddle family of Winston County, Mississippi is traced back to Charlie Riddle, who was born around 1844 in Alabama. Charlie's parents are unknown, but his DNA is linking us back to his white enslavers. So somewhere in the lines, one of his enslavers or somebody in the family was kin to him. We do know that he married Edie Cooper, and they had a total of 14 children. The first child, Millard, known as Babe, married Betty Clark, and they had one child, Millard Riddle, who married Joe Harden. Their second child, Mary Elizabeth, was born by 1868 and died in 1888. There's a broken tomb of her at Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church there in Louisville. Their third child, Emma, was born about 1871. She married William Cooper, and they had one child, Charlie Cooper, and he had a daughter named Catherine Hayes. Their fourth child, Wiley, he was born about 1873, married Ella, and they had a son named Fred, and he later married Augusta and had two children, Sarah and Tom. Charlie and Edith's fifth child was Alice Cornelius Riddle, who was born around 1880. She married Levi Cooper, and they had the following children: Elle, Charlie, Millard, Carrie, Walter, Clara. Alice died in 1946 in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. Charlie and Edith Riddle's sixth child was Anna. She was born about 1876. She married Judge Baker on December 21st, 1898. And they had the following children: Millard, Gussie, Gertha, Edwards, Kitty, Van, Dalton, Odie, and a baby boy that died shortly after his birth, and Hayes. Charlie and Edith Riddle, seventh child, S. For all we know, on the 1880 census, it just lists S, and we have not been able to find any more information. But from the information that was passed down to us, his name could have been Son Riddle, but just no further information has been found on him. Charlie and Edith's eighth child was Thomas, known as Tom, born about 1880. He had one daughter named C-Rail. Charlie and Edith Riddle's ninth child was named Lula. She was married to Wiley Triplett, and they had the following children: Danny, Consadie, Dottie, Emma, Callie, Jeffrey Lee, Consadie, Willie, Josie, Kitty, Maylee, and Swinton. Charlie and Edith's 10th child was Ella. She married Floyd Baker, and they had the following children: Edgar, Oscar, Mildred, Pauline, Denton, and Eddie. Charlie and Edith's 11th child, Dan, was born about 1887. He married Ida, and they had 9 children: Lundy, Aline, Cuba, Jolie, CL, Bessie, Pearlie Mae, and Charlie. Charlie and Edith's 12th child, Kitty, she married Benson Jack Carter on October 27, 1910, and they had 9 children: Lovey, Glover, Charlie, Ollie, Sam, Willis, Houston, Edith, and Bernice. Charlie and Edith's 13th child was born in 1891. She married John Robert Lee Dawkins on September 16, 1916, and they had 9 children: Talmadge, Robert, Prentice, Mary, Vernell, Seabell, Janie, Roberta, and Maureen. From previous reunions, we know that Charlie Riddle had children by his sister-in-law, Nerve Cooper. Those 4 children he had with sister-in-law are Luella, Albert, Sally, and Duncan. These children went in the last name of Cooper because he was not married to Nerve Cooper, but they were his children, and DNA is proven that to be true. The Riddle family primarily remained in the Shiloh community, and that's where most of them are still living today, for those who are connected to the Riddle family.